last week, last month.
nerve damage, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call to order the Safety, Health, and Service Committee meeting. Members present are Mr. Pace, Ms. Ramos, and myself as chairman. The purpose of this committee meeting is to consider an appointment by Mayor Day of Health Director Nicole Bache to the One Ohio Region 11 Governance Board of Directors, and to consider Resolution 19-2022. Mayor Day, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this Regional 11 Board is part of the One Ohio, I guess you would call it an initiative that Governor DeWine has put together in order to distribute the opioid settlement monies. Each region, there are, I believe, 9 regions in the state. Each region has a board. The purpose of the board is to make recommendations to the One Ohio Foundation, which oversees the distribution of the money. Make recommendations to them on funding projects that the regional board feels will help with opioid addiction and recovery. So from that regional board, the municipality with the largest population gets to appoint one person to represent New Philadelphia in this case. And I've asked Nicole Bache, who is the Director of Nursing for our health department, to be that representative. And she accepted that today.
Does anyone have questions of the mayor? Ms. Ramos?
You can answer this, or Mayor Day. It says here, the One Ohio Region 11 update. The organizers of One Ohio Region 11 met, blah, blah, blah. So who are they?
Who are,
The organizers of One Ohio, and that's under Omega, right?
yeah, Jeanette Wiersbicky from Omega was elected as the Region 11 representative to the foundation, state foundation. And I don't have all those names for you. I can get them for you, though.
Would you please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you don't think that this affects our home rule or anything like that, right?
No, this
Or
is just,
getting to distribute the opioid settlement
yes,
money?
that's what the governor wanted, was a structure for getting this money down to the local level.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of the mayor? Mr. Pace?
Mr. Mayor, do we need to pass this on first reading?
Yes, yeah, as a matter of fact, I have a meeting tomorrow that I'd like to take the resolution and present. This has been a rushed process. The governor actually rolled this out 2 months ago and said that he wants to have everything in place by the 1st of June. So here it is, almost the 1st of June. And we're scrambling, to at least get our region organized.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Well, the mayor answered not only the appointment of Ms. Bache, but he also answered the explanation for the governance board. And it's the fact that it's a mechanism to disperse funding that has been received from litigation, opioid litigation. Mr. Law Director, do you have any comments?
None beyond what you and I discussed previously. I think you pretty much covered it all,
Thank you.
and the mayor did as well.
Okay, is there any action to be taken by the committee this week?
I'll make a motion to move Resolution 19-2022 to tonight's agenda, pass on first reading.
Have a motion?
I'll second.
And a second. We'll vote. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Ms. Ramos?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Is there anything else to come before the committee this evening? Motion to adjourn
So moved.
at 7:04. Thank you.
All right, it's 7:15. We'll call the committee of the whole to order and roll call.
Mr. Holland,
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer,
Here?
Mrs. May, Mr. Pace,
Here.
Mrs. Ramos,
Here.
Mr. Ricklick,
Present.
Mr. Seldenright.
Present.
All right, thank you. We only have really one item on the agenda for our committee of the whole, and it's the ASME clerical contract. I know everybody's had a copy of the details. Does anybody have any questions about that contract? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Yes, Mrs. Ramos?
Well, it's just for clarification, it was straightforward. Okay, for the 2 15-minute breaks, the office hours are 8 to 4:30, but they have to report 7:45 to 4:45 for the 9-hour workday. So does that mean that the staff gets to come and leave at 8 and 4:30? Take their 15-minute breaks and then,
I didn't understand what you was asking there.
okay, so the
7:45.
office hours are,
Well, I'll make it easy. 7:45 to 4:45 is 9 hours. They get an hour for lunch. That's an 8-hour day.
right, well, my
Unpaid hours.
question was, if you decide to take your 15-minute break at 7:45 and come in at 8, can you do that?
No,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, any other questions by council? Administration? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion that we put resolution 2022 on tonight's agenda for passage to accept the contract, get it passed this evening, and suspend the rules. Do I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Yes.
frequently, there's a window. Are we in that window at this point, or
We're in the window.
are we near the end?
Uh,
Does it
I
need to
would
be
say
passed
we're-
tonight?
Yeah, no, I'd say that we'd have maybe 2 more weeks.
So do I have a motion? We put on Mr. Ricklick,
I'll make a motion to add 2022
yes.
to the agenda night, suspend the rules and pass an emergency to allow for it to be handled by the administration.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Lanzer, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace,
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos,
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick,
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
Any other items that come before the committee of the whole this evening? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ricklick. It's 7:18.
Did I tell you what happened?
No, it just looks black.
This meeting of New Philadelphia City Council will now come to order. Would you please rise and remain standing for the invocation and pledge of allegiance? Father, again, we gather here as a city council to serve the citizens of New Philadelphia. We just pray your guidance and direction on our decision-making here this evening. Father, again, we continue to pray for the health and safety of our citizens in New Philadelphia. We continually pray for our police and firemen for their health and safety. And Lord, this Monday is Memorial Day, and we just pause and want to give thanks and remembrance for all those who have given their lives to serve our country for the freedoms that we have in this country. And we just thank you for all those folks that have given their lives for our country. We just give you all the praise. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Also like to welcome all those that are watching this evening via Facebook or YouTube. See, we welcome all those folks on there, so roll call.
Mr. Holland.
Present.
Mr. Lanzer.
Here.
Mrs. May. Mr. Pace.
Here.
Mrs. Ramos.
Here.
Mr. Ricklick.
Present.
Mr. Seldenwright.
Here.
All right, let it be known that Mrs. May has an excused absence this evening, as well as Mrs. Gundy. All right, everybody's had a chance to see the agenda for this evening. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Mr. Ricklick.
I'd like to add,
The agenda. Oh, that's right.
Yes, Mr. Ricklick.
I think it's resolution 2022
Yes.
to the agenda tonight.
All right, do I have a second? Mr. Alonso, thank you. All right, and Mr. Holland.
I'd like to add Resolution 19, 2022 to tonight's agenda.
Do I have a second for that one? Mr. Pace, thank you. Any others? Any discussion by administration or council? Roll call.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenwright.
Yes.
All right, resolution 19 and 2022 has been added to the agenda. Now I'd accept a motion to approve the agenda with those additions. Mr. Alonso, thank you. Need a second? Mrs. Ramos, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lanzer. Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenwright.
Yes.
All right, our agenda has been approved. Minutes, everybody's had a chance to you review the minutes from our last council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, to entertain a motion to approve. Mr. Seldenwright,
Second.
Ms. Ramos, second, thank you. Any discussion by administration, council? Roll call.
Mr. Seldenwright.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Abstain.
Right. Correspondence, Ms. Courtwright.
To council and Law Director Fate from Mayor Day dated May 19th, 2022. This is an email titled One Ohio Region 11 Update. To Councilman Holland from President Kemp. This is dated May 21st, 2022. This is an email titled Please Assign to the Safety, Health, and Service Committee with Resolution 19, 2022 as the attachment. And to Council and Administration from Mayor Day dated May 23rd, 2022. This is the mayor's report. And that concludes correspondence for this evening,
Thank you,
Mr.
Ms.
President.
Courtwright. All right, we'll move into our administrative reports. First up, we have Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to go over here to the podium because I had another
Yeah.
special presentation to make tonight. But before we get to that, I
Make
wanna
sure
tell
that
you
mic-
about come on in, guys.
Make sure the mic's on back here.
It is.
It is, mic's on? Okay,
Yeah.
good. The Ohio Municipal League is asking for involvement by local elected officials and citizens to stop continued attempts by the Ohio legislature to take away home rule. Article 18, Section 3 of the Ohio Constitution grants municipalities the authority to adopt laws and regulations for its own self-government. At the OML Summer Regional Conference I attended this past Friday in Athens, OML officials warned that legislation continues to be introduced in the Ohio House and Senate that threaten to remove New Philadelphia's home rule and put decisions that should be made here locally into the hands of state government. One such measure being considered is House Bill 563, which would prohibit local regulation of short-term rentals like Airbnbs. OML Executive Director Ken Scarrett told us that the lack of participation by local elected officials and citizens is giving special interest groups and lobbyists more say in writing legislation. To get involved, you can start by learning about the bills being considered by the Ohio legislature by visiting the legislature's website, and you'll see the address if you read my mayor's report online. And you can also find the contact information for State Representative Brett Hillier and Ohio Senator Jay Hottinger on that website. And I would encourage everyone to just be more aware of the legislation that's being considered in Columbus and how it's going to affect us on a local level. Everyone who works for the city of New Philadelphia knows that they are called to serve our citizens and businesses. Serving the public is what we do. And as mayor, it brings me great joy when I can commend employees for going above their call of duty. Such is the case for General Services employees Tristan Hunter, Donnie Pettit, and Mike Brinkley. On Tuesday, April 12th at around 1:30 or 1:45 p.m., they were driving in a city vehicle on Park Avenue Northwest when they saw an elderly resident fall down the steps outside of her home. They stopped to check on her, called 911, and stayed with the resident until the paramedics arrived. Had they not responded so quickly, it's uncertain just how long the woman would have gone without help. I asked Tristan, Donnie, and Mike to come forward. I understand Donnie's not here tonight, but if the two of you would come up here so I can present each of you with your certificate of accommodation and thank you on behalf of the citizens of New Philadelphia. Mike, thank you. Thank you. Tristan, thank you. Great job. That's
Thank you.
okay. Yeah, we're ready. You work for the city of New Philadelphia. Thank you. That concludes my report, Mr. President. Any questions?
Any councilman have any comments?
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yes. It's great to have great employees that go above and beyond. I tell you, it's
Yes.
great. All right, thank you, Mayor Day. We'll move on to,
I know with them kids, you don't want to.
That's why I got to it right away.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Tristan.
we need to start them young. You think?
I know he didn't want to.
All right, we move on to Service Director, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last council meeting, I want to make a correction on the Omega grant. You know, I had thanked everybody for passing it on short notice. And at that time, I said it was for $210,000. I want to be corrected on that. It was for $250,000. We got the letter this next day, and $210 was for preliminary engineering, and then the remainder $40,000 is for construction. She broke it up for Omega's books to get some of it out now in 2023, and then some of it to finish up. So again, that's a great correction, and I apologize for that, but paperwork came the next day, and I'm like, oh, well. So I want to make that sure. And again, now that makes that project total in grant money $2,250,000 for the Kent State Connector Trail. So we're there. I think it's right there at 100% funded now, so shouldn't cost the taxpayers anything. So report on that. Next project, the runway lighting. They're going in next week. To start the underground conduit for all the runway lighting. They'll start that next week. They'll continue to work until it's finished, but at the next meeting, I'll give an update on how far they got and to where they're going to be at. Last week, I talked with Dominion, Joe Armstrong. That project was in June, and I haven't heard nothing from it, so Joe and I touched base. They moved it back to September. So once I know more about that, the gas line project, I'll let everybody know. Right now, though, he's in September after talking with the engineer on that project. And I know I reported on it before, but I know it said something in June, but it will be September at the earliest. And that's the end of my report.
Any questions from the service director? No, thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
All right, we move on to Safety Director. Mr. Popham is not with us this evening. We'll move on to the auditor, and Mrs. Kenny's not here as well, so we'll move on to Treasurer, Mr. Gerber.
No report, sir.
All right. Then we'll move on to Mr. Fate, Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I recently met with the Board of Housing Appeals, and the reason I did this is, if you recall, last year we passed legislation that was nuisance abatement legislation. And what it did was, it was kind of a 3 strikes and you're out rule, meaning that if we were called to the same location 3 or more times, we could start charging for our services. This was directly came out of what was going on at the Oya Hotel, where we were being called multiple times within a year's period for drug overdoses and related criminal activity. And council passed that overwhelmingly. That legislation calls for the appointment of a board to appeal to. And rather than appointing a new board, I've worked with the Board of Housing Appeals. There's some outstanding community leaders in that. It's a fantastic board to work with. We have the first Board of Appeals. They're instrumental in helping us to tear down dilapidated houses. In other words, if we go after somebody whose house we're gonna tear down, that's being used as a drug house, they have the right to appeal to the Board of Appeals. We had our first successful appeal, and that house is about to be tore down. So I asked them if they would be interested in taking on the role of also overseeing this nuisance abatement appeals, and they voted unanimously to do that. So I think that's fantastic, and what I do need from you, Mr. President, is I need you to assign, we're gonna have to amend our nuisance abatement legislation to reflect that the Board of Housing Appeals will hear appeals under that statute. So if you could assign that to, I would suspect it'd be
Yep, Mr.
Safety, Health, and Services.
Yes, Mr.
That'd
Mr.
be
Holland, would you
great.
take that into your committee, please?
I will do so.
And then beyond that, I'm also researching, at the request of the mayor, ways to prohibit recreational marijuana within the city, in case that should ever come to fruition in the state of Ohio. I'm not a big believer that it's going to in the state of Ohio. It's come up on the ballot multiple times, and it hasn't been. Part of the problem that we have here, though, is there's several pockets of Goshen Township that make it appear that it's a new Philadelphia, and that's unfortunate, but there's not a whole lot we can do about that. Hopefully Goshen Township would be a little more community-oriented and not want to see marijuana being distributed in their communities.
Marvin,
Yeah.
on the nuisance, have we had any coming close to being to where they need to be?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to act on this sooner rather than later. We have had a rental property that's had a number of them that we'd like to
Okay.
move on relatively soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Ramos.
Thank you. I had a question, I understand about the pockets on West High, we're looking at. That's right beside New Philly parcels. Can you research, or is there anything that prohibits those businesses, even though they're in township parcels, from being right next to a city parcel?
Sure, I can look into it. I don't believe we have any recourse, 'cause I think there's some regulations with regards to being close to schools,
Right,
things of that nature, but this isn't anywhere close to a school. But I'll be happy to look into that.
okay, thank you. That's my ward and also my neighborhood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from Mr. Fate?
Mr. Fate,
Yes, Mr. Holland.
are we required to provide water and sewer services to that tract of land?
Yeah.
We are not, but the question is, if they're already receiving it, I don't know that we can take it away, but that's something I'd be happy to research. But we're not required to provide water and sewer services to anyone outside the city of New Philadelphia,
I would like to request that you do that, please.
certainly.
And I concur with that. That's a really good question.
Thank you.
And we've utilized that in the past to prohibit housing developments going in that would not have met with city regulations, that would have been right on the outskirts of our community. And I actually had a court case that went over the Fifth District Court of Appeals that I won on that issue. And the Supreme Court has made it clear that we have the right to control our own water and sewer.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fate. All right, move on to our board commission reports. First up is Planning Commission, Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning Commission will be meeting on June 14th, Tuesday, 1 PM here in council chambers, and we're still working on our agenda.
All right. Move on, Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board of Zoning Appeals met May 10th here in council chambers with 2 variance requests to be heard. First one was Springvale Health Center at 567 Wabash Avenue, non-compliant with a corner setback, in violation of 1167.03A. The board did not feel there was enough information. They didn't have a good idea of where that sign was actually going to sit, so it was tabled. And since it's been tabled, Mr. Mathias and Chief Goodwin has went out and okayed the location for that sign. As a matter of fact, the board had recommended they come back within 10 days, so we will be meeting again tomorrow night at 5 PM here in council chambers to hear about that sign and see how that goes. Also, the second variance request was for 1847 East High Avenue, which was for a conditional use permit within the business district. And that was voted on and turned down on a 5-0 vote. That's the end of my report.
Any questions for Mr. McAbeer? Then we'll move on to Airport Commission, Mr. Seldright.
We had met this past week. Mr. McAveer had explained that they were getting ready to start on some of the projects out there. We do, as a council, need to approve the 2 new members of the airport committee. I believe I'd be able to call a voice vote on that this evening, correct?
Yes.
Okay. We are looking to add Mr. Bob Bedard and John Marsh. So we've never done a voice vote, so I don't know. Just
All right.
a yay or a nay.
All right.
Mr. Holland,
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer,
Yes.
Mr. Pace,
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos,
Yes.
Mr. Bricklick,
Yes.
Mr. Seldenwright.
Yes.
All right, those 2 are appointed. Any questions for Mr. Seldright? Any other questions? Move on to Park Board, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quick report tonight, the Tuscarora Park opens this Saturday, May 28th. I know the Parks Department, RTY, Rotary has been working really hard getting the park up and ready, running, ready to go. So I think it's gonna be a nice weekend, so it's good time to get out and go to Tuscarora Park. And then on the pickleball courts, they're still set to go on August 1st for a start. So that is, and then we're gonna be meeting June 15th at noon at the Park Pavilion. That's all I have this evening.
Are they still looking for some employees? I know the summer help, I think. Are they-
Yeah, I think the Parks Department and Citywide are looking for summer help. So,
Anybody out there is looking for summer work, they're looking for
yep.
workers. Mrs. Ramos.
Yes, you said August, start date for pickleball. Is that construction? or
Construction, yes.
Operation, okay, construction. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Ricklick.
A point of order. I apologize. That's why I hesitated on my vote. In the past, Airport Commission, we've had to have a resolution for each one individually to vote on. Is there a reason we can do it this way? That's all.
Yeah, they're filling unexpired terms.
Okay, so we're okay. Okay, I just don't want to.
Yeah, that was why the mayor had asked me about
Okay,
that
I see.
earlier, and I actually gave him my opinion.
Because I
on
know
that.
we've always had
Because-
legislation.
Yeah.
They're just
Okay.
stepping in and filling an
They're filling
unexpired term. We're
the
not
expiring
appointing.
terms.
Okay, all right, that's fine. That's,
That was why.
All right, we're good then.
Cool.
All right, move on to the Health Board. Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Health Board met here in council chambers on Wednesday, May the 11th at noon. The meeting was open to the public. The board was advised by Commissioner Iono that the state of Ohio would be sending a one-time reimbursement of $22,755. This reimbursement was to cover operational disruption expenses, or to help cover operational disruption expenses incurred by the city health department. The state is the one that created whatever formula. We had no input into it. They just notified, we're sending you this. In any case, the grant application to assist in mosquito management has been approved by the state of Ohio in the amount of $14,120. I'm sure that the health department will be providing us with a mosquito effort pretty soon, a date, calendar. Also concerning COVID-19, the health department has vaccines and test kits available. Please contact the health department for an appointment if you need to get an injection. And please note that the COVID-19 cases are on a rise here in Tuscarawas County and in the city of New Philadelphia. Mr. President, I would like to remind everyone that funeral assistance is still available through the Federal Emergency Management Agency. For information or to file for assistance, anyone should contact FEMA at fema.gov. All the information is there online. Takes about 20 minutes, and it's a rather simple process. If you go online first and check to see what's required, that will even speed up the process. During the month of April, there were 20 overdose cases, with 12 of those cases being in the city of New Philadelphia. There were a total of 20 drug overdoses in the county during the month of April, and 12 of those cases were in the city of New Philadelphia. That concludes my health department.
That assistance you're talking about, that is for COVID deaths, correct?
That's for COVID deaths, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
All right, yeah, all right. Any questions for Mr. Holland? All right, now we'll move on to our committee reports. First up would be Finance, Mr. Ricklick.
thank you, Mr. President. No formal report this evening, but I would like to ask for a meeting for the Finance Committee on June 13th, 2022, for a time available, and ask the law director to prepare a proposed ordinance for a $20,000 additional dollars to be placed in the park line item for the shortfall that we've kept out for the stadium project. I discussed it with the mayor. He's still in favor of it. The health of the account for our income tax has shown that it can support that donation or part of that project. So we'd like to move forward as a committee chair to bring that to my committee to review and to move forward.
All right. Also, I've received a request from the Fire Chief Parrish today about a possible ambulance, and it's like an 18-month window out to get one, and so I'm going to assign that to the Finance Committee to take into your committee for consideration, so you can do that at your June 13th meeting as well.
Could I ask the clerk if the 12 PM is open?
7 PM.
7 PM, yeah, 12 PM.
Yes.
My
No,
question.
that would be a
We got
really
12.
long meeting. 7 is open, yes.
Okay, I'll
At
take
all.
7. Could you
Okay.
add both of those to the agenda for my
Yes,
meeting?
I will do
And I'll
that.
forward that request, Mr. Parrish, to you as well.
Okay, thank you. And I need to talk to Beth. I was gonna talk to her this evening, but she was absent tonight, so I will call her tomorrow, so she is aware of what we're looking at.
All
Okay?
right.
Thank you very much.
All right, Public Works and Economic Development, Mr. Lonzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right, Safety, Health, and Service, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
The Safety, Health, and Service Committee met here in council chambers at 7 PM this evening, and we were reviewing Mayor Day's appointment of the Health Director, Nicole Bache, to the One Ohio Region 11 Governance Board of Directors, and to consider Resolution 19-2022. Mayor Day explained the need to have a representative on the Regional Board of Directors, and that this board creates the mechanism to disperse settlement funds or settlement proceeds from opioid litigation. The dispersed funds are to be used as an aid in abating the opioid crisis that we have here in New Philadelphia and across the state of Ohio. The committee meeting concluded at 7:04, and that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Holland. Any questions for Mr. Holland? All right, we move on to zoning and annexation, Mrs. Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
All right, we move on to the salary, Mr. Seldright.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right, Cemetery Board, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
All right. Contact of special, Mrs. Bay's not here this evening. So we'll move on to visitors' comments. The floor is now open. Anyone wishing to address council should rise, state their name, address, and address all comments to the chair. Do we have anybody that wishes to address council this evening? Hearing none, we'll move into council comments. Any council members' comments this evening? Yes, Mr. Rickley.
Yes, I would like to just announce that the New Philadelphia baseball team won this evening, and will be in the district finals this Wednesday.
Yes.
So,
All right. What was the final score?
6-3.
that's what I can't tell you. It was 6-2 when I turned it off.
6-3.
6-3's ended up.
6-3?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, so,
All right,
yes.
congratulations.
Coach Weisel,
I actually ended up 8-4, I'm sorry.
8-4? Okay.
Even better.
Coach Weisel has had some lean years prior to now, and so it's glad to see that his persistence in staying steady with his philosophies and the team sticking together and them buying into his philosophies, that's finally paying off for the program. And I think the program in the future will be, you'll see a lot more competition for each position here coming up. The youth program is very strong. To commend Councilman Pace with the younger kids, getting them more involved and taking some philosophy from somebody else that used to coach with him. He's done a good job, and he has a good group of coaches in all levels.
Got a lot of volunteers.
Volunteers, yes, that I've coached some of them, I know a lot of them. But I think the programs in our area is going well, and I think with the improvements in those areas that the city has been doing and Councilman Pace has taken upon on the Hill Field as an example, I think it's been stated very clearly that there's more games played up there this year than has been in the past seasons, and this is one of the worst seasons we've ever had for weather in the spring. Most teams, out of the 22 games they're allowed to play, we're only playing 16 to 18 games. So it's commend to Councilman Pace to take that charge. I want to commend him. Jeff Miller is his protege that's helping him with that. And I think Lonzo Excavating was the company that he hired to do the project with the city. So kudos to all those. I think it's great. And Coach Weisel has a stream coming that he's going to be able to field some good teams. So I want to thank everyone here in the city and the New Philadelphia baseball team.
Very well, hey, especially we're supportive. Mayor Day, I know Saturday, or Monday, we got the memorial service at the courthouse, starts
11
at
a.m.
11 a.m. Here, you're the speaker?
I'm the featured speaker.
All right, so, you know, I
It's an
think,
honor. It really is, it's an honor.
it is an honor, and, you know, we don't give enough credit for Memorial Day, I don't think, for all those that served and given their lives to our country, so it's a great thing to be that the program is well attended, I think, and, like I said, with the New Philly Band, a lot of the other things they have going there,
Yeah.
it's well worth your time to go there to the courthouse for the Veterans Day service, so I would ask all the people in our community that if you can, attend. All right, move on to our legislative agenda. Ms. Courtwright.
Ordinance number 4, 2022, an ordinance by the Council of the City of New Philadelphia, Ohio, to increase all sanitation accounts by 50 cents per month. Sanitation account bills mailed in the month of June 2022 shall reflect the rate increase, and declaring an emergency, third reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Mr. Lanzer.
Yes, Mr. Kemp, I move that proposed ordinance 4, 2022 be passed this evening.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Pace, thank you. All right, any discussion by the community, administration, council, roll call.
Mr.
Oh,
Lund,
excuse me. Yes, Ms. Ramos.
I just want to say, to the citizens, and we're citizens here too, that, I know everybody's been hit very hard, by the gas prices, and if you have any money you've been saving for retirement, 401ks, they've been like almost decimated. So I understand everybody's been hit, but that also includes, the city's paying gas prices as well. So I think this is a happy compromise, the 50 cents rather than, the dollar or whatever, $1.25 a month that was originally proposed. So that's what I wanted to say. I want to recognize everybody's being hit.
Thank you for your comments. Roll call.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, ordinance 4, 2022 has passed.
Ordinance number 8, 2022, an ordinance by the Council of the City of New Philadelphia, Ohio, to amend and correct certain specific sections of the Housing Code in Codified Ordinance 1335 due to apparent typos wherein it appears the number 4 was improperly inserted, whereas it should instead be the number 5, and declaring an emergency, second reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? All right, hearing none, it will be held for our next regularly scheduled council meeting on the 13th of June.
Ordinance number 9, 2022, an ordinance by the Council of the City of New Philadelphia, Ohio, to adopt a new section of the city's current ordinances regarding fire damaged structures and declaring an emergency, first reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Hearing none, it will be held for a second reading at our next scheduled council meeting.
Resolution number 18, 2022, a resolution by the Council of the City of New Philadelphia, Ohio, authorizing the City of New Philadelphia to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC State Capital Improvement and/or local transportation improvement programs, execute contracts as required, and upon award of the grant to accept any grant money, and to authorize and direct the service director to advertise for bids and award bids for the 4th Street Southwest Stormwater Improvement Project Phase 2 and declaring an emergency, second reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Hearing none, it will be held for a third reading at our next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Resolution number 19, 2022, a resolution by the Council of the City of New Philadelphia, Tuscarawas County, Ohio, authorizing the One Ohio Region 11 governance structure under the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Mr. Holland?
Mr. President, thank you. I would move that the rules be suspended on Resolution 19, 2022.
All right, do we have a second to that? Yes, Mr. Pace. All right, any discussion by council, administration? Roll call.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, rules have been suspended. Now, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that Resolution 19, 2022 be adopted.
Do I have a second? Mr. Pace, thank you. Any discussion by community, administration,
It is 18, I believe.
council? Roll call.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, resolution 19, 2022 has passed.
Yes, we did. Okay, 19, 2022 has passed. Resolution 20, 2022, a resolution by the Council of the City of New Philadelphia, Ohio, to adopt an agreement between the City of New Philadelphia, Ohio, and AFSCME Local 1958 and Ohio Council 8 Clerical Chapter to be effective January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2024, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Mr. Ricklick.
Mr. President, I ask we suspend the rules on Resolution 2022.
Do I have a second?
I'll second
Ms.
that.
Alonso, thank you. Any discussion by administration, council? Roll call.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, rules have been suspended. Mr. Ricklick.
Mr. President, I ask we pass Resolution 2022.
Do I have a second to that? Mr. Alonso. All right, any discussion by community, administration, council? Roll call.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, resolution 2022 has passed.
That concludes legislation for this evening, Mr.
All right,
President.
thank you, Ms. Corright. Is there any unfinished business that needs to be brought before council this evening? Ms. Ricklick, new business, yes.
Old business.
Oh, yes. Old business.
The land that we are trying to sell down on Bluebell, is there any status on that, or?
Last meeting I reported that they've had difficulties meeting with the owners of the other 8 tracks there, and they need a couple of those. So that's why it has not
Okay.
been brought to light as of yet. The mayor had made a recommendation to pass along to the group, maybe a name,
Yeah.
see if they want to try that, and so we're going to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other unfinished old business? New business? Adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned at 8:08. Thanks, everyone.
Mitch, my number's 989.